Happy Wednesday, 6th grade. Today is May 13th, and we are going to continue our discussion about how the universe was created by focusing on what the Bible says about creation. And so just as a reminder, don't forget to email me your 2-question response if you haven't already to the 1 Chronicles 29, 10, and 11 that was assigned in the previous lesson, right? So I can give you some participation points for that. Okay? And so let's take a look at some of the evidence against the Big Bang Theory that your book highlights. Okay, and so young Earth scientists like to point to evidence that the temperature of the universe is uniform and was never hotter than it actually is now. This directly contradicts the Big Bang Theory as This contradicts the Big Bang Theory of a cataclysmic hot beginning. Remember we said that there was so much pressure and temperature and heat and dust and everything and just exploded, Big Bang. So the idea that young Earth scientists believe that the Bible points to the fact that the universe has always been the same temperature that it has been contradicts this idea because it would have been very, very hot at the time of the Big Bang Theory. Additionally, according to physics, the creation of matter in the form of helium and hydrogen gas, that formation should create equal amounts of antimatter. So for every amount of matter we create, there would be an equal amount of antimatter. However, this is not the case. We don't see this in Earth, okay? And we're not going to dive too deep into what antimatter is and all that. That's physics, way beyond the scope of this class. But basically, that's not the case that we see here. The universe is primarily matter with only a tiny trace amount of antimatter. So if the Big Bang Theory and physics were in line, basically, we would see an equal amount of matter and antimatter, but we just don't. And this is one of those points that people who argue for the Big Bang Theory like to overlook. Okay? Also, spiral galaxies indicate that the universe is younger than those who support the Big Bang. The center of these galaxies, as we've learned, rotate faster than the outer arms, okay? And as this structure tightens, okay, it creates the spiral galaxy. It does not unwind, okay? So as those arms are spinning around that spiral galaxy that we've looked at, it's tightening. So if the most common galaxies, which are the spiral galaxies, were in fact billions of years old, they would no longer be, that shouldn't say serial shaped, that should say spiral shaped, that's a typo on my end. They would no longer be spiral shaped because of how they move, okay? Instead they would be compressed into balls or disks. And so, just simply the fact that we see so many spiral galaxies out there is another reason that young Earth believers and Christians can look to and say that this is evidence that it's not as old as we think it is, and the Big Bang may not have happened as scientists like to portray it. Additionally, young Earth scientists point out that if the universe was in fact billions of years old, then there would be evidence of more supernovas, and we don't have that evidence. Even some scientists who do not believe in God, who are not Christians, have argued that something had to have sparked or started the instant creation that is represented by the Big Bang. And so, in fact, some even atheists, scientists, who completely reject the idea of God, also reject the idea of the Big Bang Theory because, in their opinion, they believe it points to the need for a creator rather than explaining how the universe appeared without one. So it's rather interesting that they think that the idea of the Big Bang is so kind of arbitrary or abstract that it actually proves that we would have needed God or a creator to make that happen. And so some scientists don't acknowledge the Big Bang Theory even if they don't acknowledge God. And even though the scientific community accepts the idea of the Big Bang Theory, the model cannot answer so many key questions, like the universe's age, as we mentioned in the last video, or future expansion or collapse of the universe. They just don't have answers to this. And so you can think of the Big Bang Theory kind of like a piece of Swiss cheese. Okay? There's a lot of holes in there. Big holes, small holes. All those holes are unanswered questions that really make it impossible for us to point to the Big Bang Theory as being plausible. Okay? And so in Ecclesiastes 3:11, it says that no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. And that is so true. Even as Christians, if you were to become a scientist and wanted to study this, the reality is on this side of heaven, we won't know all the answers. We may find more because God has given people intellectual gifts and abilities and to study these things. But ultimately, I don't think that God is going to reveal everything to us on this side of heaven. So we may never know the answer to all of these questions and exactly how the universe was formed. But nonetheless, it's important for us to remember that all scientific models or theories, like the Big Bang, are simply tools that are created by imperfect humans like ourselves in an attempt to understand how the eternal God works in his creation. Again, they're just tools, and we're going to get it wrong sometimes as scientists. And we've often and throughout history gotten a lot of things wrong with science and have to constantly go back to the scientific method and reformulate new ideas and build upon things that we once thought were true and have changed. And that's science. It's always evolving. Right, and so I found these two from an article that you're going to be reading. These, I have two pictures here. You're going to be reading an article later in the week, and so these two pictures came from it, but I just wanted to highlight really quickly. This is just kind of a visual representation showing you kind of the idea of the Big Bang Theory lined up with creationism, the first 6 days of creation and what the Bible says here, as well as showing you kind of a timeline here of where the Bible matches up. So, they're saying the Big Bang Theory happened here, and over billions of years, there will be a heat death. But the biblical future of the universe is that God created, in Genesis here, thousands of years of sin and death. That's kind of where we are right now. And then if you go to 2 Peter 3, you can read about what happens here. And then finally, this area would be the book of Revelation and eternity, where we would spend time in heaven with God if we are saved. So this is just a brief comparison. You're going to be diving more into these images in an article, like I said, later in the week. So we will revisit this. Okay, so now for your homework. Please read 8.14, pages 417 to 421. Again, I can never put all of the little nitty-gritty details into this PowerPoint to keep it short. So please reread that and make sure you have answered the lesson review questions, 8.14, as usual, and email those to me. And then check back here on Friday for a new assignment to be given out. That's going to be the article that I just hinted towards. All right? And so with that, have a great Wednesday.